Cool.
Okay. Sweet.
Just
And
yeah.
we're going to start back up. You have the mic.
All
I
right.
probably should hold a mic while I do it. Okay, so we are back live from Global Azure, the hottest event in town. We're not all nerds for being here. I will say, actually, fast question. So last year we did it on a Saturday. Do you guys raise your hands if you prefer a weekday? Raise your hands if you prefer a weekend. I guess also this is pretty biased because everybody who showed up on a weekday is here. Okay, so we'll figure out next year what we want to do. Maybe we'll do a 5-day event, really go crazy. So Dr. Keith is somebody really involved in the Columbus Tech community. If you go out to Code and Coffee, he's going to be there over half the time.
Yep.
He will be back here Sunday. So if he doesn't answer all your questions, you know where to find him aggressively, and is somebody who knows a lot with both AI and also with accessibility work. So a lot of really important stuff in software, especially right now with the lots of lawsuits going on around accessibility. So something worth learning about. I will let you take it away.
All right, thank you, sir. Give her introducer a round of round of applause. I don't know words today. Hi, folks. I'm Dr. Keith. Everybody say hi, Dr. Keith.
Hi, Dr. Keith.
Hi. Okay, so we're going to talk about prompt engineering. I guarantee you this will be the most boring topic that you have heard the entire day. You will likely fall asleep in your seats. You will likely be looking at your phone, trying to figure out what else to do, wondering where is there going to be more pizza? Why isn't it warm? What other things can I do today? I apologize now. It's that kind of thing. Also, I don't know how many of you brought your computers with you here today. This is not a talk. This is a workshop, meaning that you will do things. Whether you have your phone or whether you have your computer, you can also do stuff as long as you're able to connect to the internet or connect to some kind of large language model and type some words in. Cool. So we're limited on time. I'm going to get into this pretty quickly. I got pulled into prompt engineering because I love artificial intelligence, because it allows me to do things that I haven't been able to do in years, specifically programming, and making large applications without having an entire development team. You've heard about some of this with some of the earlier talks today. We're actually going to take a little bit of a step into moving into prompt engineering and making your prompts a little bit better. By show of hands, how many people are developers in here? Okay, how many people work with artificial intelligence on a regular basis, generative AI stuff? Okay, so about half of you. How many people have been told that you have to start working with this stuff? Or about half. How many people have been kind of like have been kind of AI curious, but not really exploring any stuff, or thought, well, it's kind of cool, but it can't really do anything for you? How many people thought that? No? Okay, so I've got a quiet half of people who I don't know what your experience is with Gen AI. Help me out a little bit here. Help me know. What have you been doing? Anything? Nothing?
Programming.
Passing the time? Programming.NET Expire. What else? Anybody?
Really great for writing conference talk applications.
Okay, good for conference talk applications. Okay.
Writing bash scripts.
Batch scripts. Okay, so you're using it very heavily for programming. You're using it, say again?
Lots of Copilot,
Okay.
lots of Cursor.
Okay, lots of Copilot, lots of Cursor. So again, in programming, how many people just use it casually? Like, I want to go make a recipe or a training plan. Those types of folks. Okay, so we've got some casual users here. So all of the stuff that you've already done is prompt engineering. We're going to do a quick we'll talk about what it is and what it isn't. But basically, I'm here to tell you that this thing is your superpower. What started off, at one point, there were companies who were paying over like 400 grand to get somebody who could specialize in prompt engineering, because they knew that the quality of your input equals the quality of your output at some level, meaning that the better that you make that input and the clearer that you're able to do that, the more you're able to get generative AI to actually work with you in terms of getting your results. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. Building those prompts for better results. I can't see on my tiny screen here. Experimenting, testing in real time, and you've already heard about me, Dr. Keith. Okay, so a couple of things here. Why does this actually matter? Whenever you're working with something, whether you're doing it within a programming environment like Azure, or whether you're just using kind of those through the browser large language models like ChatGPT or Claude or any of those things, You need to guide the AI clearly and precisely, meaning it doesn't know what you want until you tell it what you want. And even then, you have to be really clear about what that means. A great prompt produces better accuracy, fewer errors, and faster results. And you can turn vague questions into powerful action-driven results. So the results that'll show up in development and automation, content creation, research and analysis, and everyday productivity. So what does this look like for you? Okay, what you're going to expect today, we've already talked a little bit about that. Real world cases, we're going to refine strategies. We're going to do all of this stuff together. So essentially, what is this prompt engineering thing? We're going to design, refine, and structure our input queries or our questions as our prompts to effectively guide the AI to give us a desired output, meaning we're going to specifically act as a bridge between human intent and the AI's interpretation, and we're going to frame our questions to maximize performance. Now, what else does that mean? That means that we're going to bridge the gap between what is human intent and what is AI output. So how many of you have ever tried something like this before? You go to like a GenLM and you type something in generally like, tell me 10 jokes about cats. Right? Right. What do those results look like?
Kind of random.
Okay, tell me a little more about that. Kind of random.
Well, they'll, like, do you want short jokes? Do you want long jokes? They'll pick like an arbitrary thing. You're just going to go with that. Even if it's not necessarily kind of what you were looking for. And it's just like the result is like if you ask the person to do that, they just do something kind of without a lot of knowledge.
Right. So something kind of random, never something that's really specific to what you want. So what would happen? So you say like, okay, give me 10 jokes and you get 10 random jokes. Is that what anybody wanted? Yes or no? No. Brett, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. What is more likely that if you were working with a human, you'd say next, okay, tell me 10 jokes. I give you 10 jokes. I give you one about a cat, one about a dog, one about a hamster. And you look at me and you say what to me? Like, that's all good, Dr. Keith, but what I was really looking for was, aha, and therein lies the issue. We're not sure what we want before we get there, and that's where bridging our gap between intent and output comes in. If we don't know what our intent is going to be, we can't necessarily guarantee the output. And without being able to do that, well, we're going to have lots of hallucinations and we're going to have results that are not focused and useful. But when we do that, we reduce the hallucinations or the confusion that the AI gets, and we get results that are focused and useful. And we get even better results from the same model just by refining that input. So what are some of these other problems that can happen? So we can get poorly framed responses. We can get hallucinations we talked about with the vague instructions where it just said, tell me like 10 things about, 10 jokes about cats, or we can get misalignment with intent and it delivers stuff in the wrong format, or can get varied answers as we heard about from producing like the same question. So you could say 10 jokes about cats to Claude and 10 jokes about cats to ChatGPT and you'll get completely different answers. Or even, here's the fun part, you can do the same thing in the same instance of ChatGPT in 2 different windows on your browser and get different responses. But as developers and stuff, we don't want that. We want consistency. We want repeatability and we want reliability. And it all starts with our intent. So what are our responses? What are our responsibilities as a prompt engineer? First things first, we're going to craft input to deliver results that are accurate, relevant, and useful. Next thing that's going to be really important for us is that we are going to, just like a human, when we're working with humans, we are going to iterate. We're going to test variations to optimize our performance and reduce those errors. A prompt engineer, a really good prompt engineer will be building prompt-based tools and workflows, those things that you can integrate into your products and your automation systems and your user interfaces. And most importantly, you're also looking at that output quality, evaluating to get the consistency and tone and correctness in alignment with your goals. So that's enough talking for that. Let's get right into our very first prompt exercise, number 1. So we're going to start with the way most people usually start, and then we're going to get more specific. Here's your task, everybody. And You know what? We're not going to count off for teams. We're just going to say, whoever you're next to, look right, look left. Congratulations, you are now a team. Okay. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to practice rephrasing generic prompts into more precise ones. I'm going to give you a singular prompt, and we want to see what results we get as you're working with your teams. You're going to talk amongst yourselves, to figure out how these things can get better and get better results. And in fact, if you have your computer with you, you have your phone with you, and you have a connection to an LMM, try your different prompts, and let's talk about those different results. Okay, so we're going to start with this original prompt. Explain how machine learning works. Okay, your task is going to be to rewrite that into a specific structured prompt. Notice I haven't told you how. For example, I'd give you an example like supervise a structured learning process, clear steps and practical examples for beginners. Your result may be the same as that. Your result may be different than that. I want you to use your brains and come up with something in your teams, but start with explain how machine learning works, and then we're going to share and discuss our improvements in small groups. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to go ahead and do that. Any questions before we start? Okay, then you got 2 minutes. Again, find your team member and start now.
Oh, the Wi-Fi is exclamation mark, capital W, welcome. Oh, it's over there.
Exclamation, capital W, ELCOME, exclamation point. About 1:30. All right. How are you refining your prompts? What do they look like? Type them in ChatGPT. Let's see what your responses are like.
And I've been having on generate diagrams. I'm a visual person, so I'm going to make us a diagram.
What are our objectives? What are we trying to achieve? About 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay, we got about 30 seconds left, and then we're going to talk. Okay, about 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we've spent a little bit of time refining our prompts. Our task originally was what prompt we're working on? Explain how machine learning works. What did you come up with, guys? Who's got something we can share? Yes, sir.
Explain machine learning like a college tutor to a new class.
Okay, explain machine learning like a college tutor to a new class. Why did you add that, and what was the result?
Wanted to give it context of a role that it was going to play, and then who the audience was going to be.
Okay. Okay, so you got that. So you gave it a role, and you gave it an idea of the audience. And what was the result of what was the result? Just read us aloud a couple of sentences.
Quantum machine learning, Alex Core ML is a way of programming computers. It has some bold out text and examples, input plus results equals output, input plus output equals rules.
Okay.
Machine learning, what is it?
Gotcha. So we got a lot of information about machine learning. Okay, who else tried? Who else tried? I saw your hand. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we did, give me a 5-minute presentation for my parents on supervised learning process and include information on data cleaning, model iteration, and model validation.
Okay. Why did you do that, and what was the result?
Thought, once again, try to get an audience. In this case, I thought it might be fun just to give something for my parents. I used to be in data science a little bit, so yeah, being familiar with some of the parts I might want to cover, data cleaning in particular is really important. And so ultimately, I got apparently a slideshow for this with slides 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Title: Understanding Supervised Learning. Slide 1: What is supervised learning? It's a type of machine learning where we teach a computer to make predictions by showing examples. Imagine you're teaching a child to recognize cats and dogs. You show them lots of labeled pictures, and eventually they learn the difference.
Okay, awesome. Let's pause there. Fantastic. So in our first example, we got text, and the next we got a slideshow. Was it your intent to get a slideshow?
I said nothing.
Interesting. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Let's come back to that. You did say presentation, and then what happened? The LMM interpreted like, oh, okay, let's make a slideshow. Cool. Who else? Yes.
Just wanted to explain machine learning to us like we're 5-year-olds.
Explain. Okay.
We got the same story about cats and dogs as you did.
Yes.
We did like a data engineer, so it changed in the perspective of what a data engineer looks like, all the headings and things that we changed in that.
Awesome. What's the one thing that's consistent between all 4 people who have voiced here? What's one thing consistent between everything?
That they all are about machine learning.
Everybody picked an audience, yes. About machine learning, not necessarily. But everybody in turn picked the audience. Let me be more specific. What was consistent between the responses from the LMMs? How many people think there was something consistent? How many people think not a damn thing?
All of them used examples, right?
We all use simplistic examples.
Yeah, so here's where I'm going with this. If you had said, well, yes, there is, and you had identified something, I'm not sure about that. If you said probably not a damn thing, I'm more likely to agree with you there, because that we did have one consistent thing through them, and that was inconsistency. Notice the inconsistency, right? We have things that all sound pretty well defined, right? We've got a presentation here. We've got simplified explanations and work for your specific audience. But they were all delivered in very different ways. And they were all very different because the LMM, even despite the information that you've given it, still has no friggin' clue what you want. Think about that for a second. This beautiful multi-billion-dollar tool still has no idea what you want unless you are so very clear, right? So the clearest example we had was a presentation just showing up as a slide deck, because you just mentioned presentation when you really kind of wanted, when it seemed like you didn't really want an actual presentation, you just wanted the bones of a presentation or clarity so that you could then take it to the next step. Whereas here, we explain like on 5, okay, I've got a simple explanation for kids, but it doesn't really, but I don't really have any clear indication of what that explanation is going to carry over for them for their understanding. Or where you have, where's your presentations here, where we had constant information, very well defined, and things for data engineers and the like, boatloads of information, and not really clear objective in terms of what that was going to mean. I see heads nodding and eyes confused. So if you have a confusion, ask the question. If you disagree, answer that. But the one thing that I will say coming out of this that we have is inconsistency. And that's by design because of these LMMs. So how do we take advantage of that? That's our next step. First of all, everybody give yourself a nice round of applause for taking that on. I know. Why are we applauding for confusion? Because this is how we learn. So we're going to talk about optimizing now your prompts. So we talked a little bit about goals as a prompt engineer, right? Creating prompts that produce those accurate, reliable, and context-aware AI responses, minimizing hallucinations, bias, and unsafe content. We didn't really get a whole lot into that, but that's part of it. These are other things that are essential for me as a prompt engineer when I'm working with tools to be able to enable AI to complete these multi-complex tasks efficiently. But the most important thing is to be able to continuously test, evaluate, and refine prompts based upon the performance and based upon what you receive. So let's talk about now what that means for you in terms of doing work. Instead of we're talking about clarity and specificity, we started there. I'm going to use this as a code example. Instead of like saying write a function, if I was in some kind of language, I would be like write a Python function, and I'm going to be specific about what I want to calculate factorials with recursion. Do I know what this means? Not really, but I do hear what I do know. What I understand is that I want a function, and these are my parameters to be able to get that accomplished. A non-code example. Given a data set of 1,000 customer transactions, analyze purchasing patterns and identify the top 3 products. Right? So now I've gone from something very general to something very specific, again, pointing towards my goal. My goal here is making sure that I get the top 3 products out of this data set. So I've made this shift from thinking generally in terms of getting information to very specifically, what is my goal and what am I trying to accomplish? A lot of you did this portion really well, guiding model, tone, style, and complexity. Explain quantum computing to a high school student. Many of you are like, hey, explain machine learning to a 5-year-old, or explain it to my parents, using simple language and relatable analogies. And even these prompts that we're talking about here are examples, but they could be improved, couldn't they? Right? We can always do something else. Like let's take, for example, explain quantum. Actually, let me do one more thing. Start with using iterative improvement and experimentation, starting with a broad prompt, evaluating those responses, and refining your prompt based on your insights. So let's take, for example, this one, right? Explain quantum computing to a high school student using simple language and relatable analogies. Not a bad prompt, but there's something that could be improved. All of you have nodded and said yes. So who has a suggestion for an improvement? Yes.
You could give it some guidelines about what you can assume they already know.
Okay, explain what that means.
Well, when you're teaching to a high school student, you assume they took the course the year before, and you can base what you tell someone on what you can assume they already know, and reduce some of what might be garbage in the output or stuff that you don't need to tell them because they passed the test on it last year.
Okay.
Freshman and senior are very different. Define that they've completed algebra but not calculus.
Okay. So how would that be reflected in our prompt?
I think in that case, it would, like, if it's, I'm trying to think of a good one for quantum computing, but like, you could say, assume that they understand how non-quantum computers work.
Okay. Let's.
So explain quantum computing to a high schooler that already understands how to use a computer and how basic computers work, but has no idea what quantum computing is.
Or they know the von Neumann model or whatever it's called.
Okay, so say that again, nice and loud so everybody can hear.
Explain quantum computing to a high school student who understands how computers work, and understands how compute works, but has no familiarity with quantum stuff or quantum computing.
Okay, all right. So do we agree that's a refinement we can use? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Okay, if that is, how does that improve?
It's more context, and it's more specific in terms of the tone.
Okay.
It's going to use concepts the
Okay, if we were to put this under one P word, we've already used the C word, context. What kind of P word? Programming, we would say, not programming, but what are we giving this? What are we giving in order to get more? What are we giving the LMM to get in order to get a better result? PARAM. Parameters, yes. We're giving more parameters. This is probably the best example of this one. Given a data set of 1,000 customer transactions, analyze the purchasing patterns and identify the top 3 products. Let's work with that one. What other parameters can we give to get a better result?
Are we actually giving it 1,000 customer transactions?
Well, we've already got that as part of our data set, right? So
We could say how long an explanation it should be. So is this a 30-second or is this like a 1-hour explanation?
okay,
Parameters like how, like, hey, we have 3 minutes and we want a summary. Do we want to like read a whole paper?
yeah. So we could define what the output looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Specific type of customer transaction?
Go on.
Yeah, like, cause we're talking about just like 3 top products. So if we dive deeply into customer transaction, get more specific, maybe we can more.
Okay, let's work with that for a moment. Tell you this is going to be a workshop. I'm checking my time. All right, let's work with that for a moment. Favorite product?
iPhone.
Say again? iPhone. Okay. All right. So now we're going to focus on the iPhone with this. Okay, so 1,000 customer transactions. We know about the iPhone. Analyze the purchasing patterns and identify the top 3. How do we improve that specific to your iPhone?
It's hard to tell because we're doing one product, right? So we're talking about top 3 products. So maybe 3 services within that product.
Okay. I feel like I'm making this group work too hard. You know what? Let me try something here because that's a bad Dr. Keith. Bad Dr. Keith. We're going to do an audible. Okay. I'm going to take you right into one of the other exercises I typically do with a group. We won't have time to do this all today. Let's go for a very specific scenario. So I have this scenario called automation with Google Apps, Script, and Gmail. Create an automation that sends a daily check-in email at the start of the workday. I'm going to give you this scenario. This is not a just kind of random scenario for test. This is something I actually had to deal with when I was working for a rather unscrupulous company who had the requirement that every remote worker send a check-in email at the beginning of each day. Yes. Okay. Now, if I write that email, how long is that? So my requirement is now I've got to send a check-in email at the beginning of every day. Do I want to write that email every day? Yes or no? No, I don't. Because what does writing that email cost me? Cost me time. All right. Let's assume it takes 5 minutes for me to write that email every day. How many minutes of time do I lose every week? 5 days a week means I lose 25 minutes of time. So I don't want to deal with that, right? So I'm like, well, wait a minute. This is a task that can be automated. So I know I can do this with Gmail. So I can use my Gmail account and I can say, okay, hey, I can send this and I don't have to worry about writing this thing anymore. And I can send it on a very specific day. I mean, I can send it at a very specific time at the beginning of each workday. So my goal is to say, all right, I don't want to write this email manually. I want to send this automatically each day so my boss gets off my back. So now I write the prompt that says, create an automation that sends a daily check-in at the start of the workday. And now I can use the LMM to create that code for me. So now okay, everybody with me so far? I see heads nodding yes. Okay, now what are the things that I'm already missing though in that email? The time of day. Okay, so I need to make sure that I put the time. Okay, so I need to put the time of day in. How does that change my prompt?
You say, well, I wouldn't give it an exact number, so it would say within 60 seconds of between 8:01 and 8:03 or whatever you want to do.
Oh, you were so much you were so much smarter than I was.
Real freaking dumb.
Yeah, I was gonna say something like the message.
Yeah.
Like, generate 20 different messages to use on different days of
Yeah.
the month.
Okay.
And then sort those, right, like randomly.
Right. Okay, so let's improve it with our prompt, right? Create an automation that's in the beginning. Check an email at the beginning of the start of each workday. Send the email at our parameters, right? Send the email between 6:01 and 6:05 a.m. each day. It was that early. Okay, so we're with that. And then at a random time. Good. What other parameters do we need to add to our prompt?
What the message is going to be.
Good. What the message is going to be. So somebody give me a message.
Well, I would link it with like a weather app, and I would say, check the weather, and depending on these ranges, be like, good morning, it's a beautiful day, or man, it's gonna be a road rain today. And like automate it that way, right?
Okay.
I just give it like a range of like, good morning, like, how is everybody doing? I don't
Happy
know.
Wednesday.
Yeah, happy
Okay.
Wednesday. Yeah.
I don't need to actually do all of that, but that's pretty slick. Right? You know, hey boss, I'm checking in at checking in that random time, you know. It's a beautiful day outside. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But very, very good. Okay. Good. Now, so you see what we're doing? So you see what we're doing here? We've refined based upon what we expect to send, right? Or what we expect for our output in order to be able to reach that. Okay, so let's take another example. What's something else that you might need to do at work during the day? And in fact, we'll use this as our exercise. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and give you one. Let's say that you have to send updates to your boss about a project on which you're working. Okay. Now your boss is going to expect these to be sent every week, and they want an update on the project. They want to know what's working, what's not working, and where you can be helped. Okay. What prompt can you write from the LMM to be able to get that to happen automatically from your email tool? We'll give you 2 minutes with this again with your team. Okay, we'll work on your prompt. So again, your boss is expecting a check-in on a project on which you're working. Wants to know what's working, what's not working, and just the overall status, where you need help. And it's going to be sent sometime during the week. What would you put in your prompt to accomplish that goal? Give yourselves about 2 minutes. And again, try inside your large language models. Let's see what that looks like. Think about what that output is going to be and what that should look like. Let's go 2 minutes starting now. Mhm. Got about 1:30. Mhm. And you can make this as simple as you need. You can make this as complex as you need. Don't overthink it. Whatever you're able to do. About 1:30 left. All right, you got about 1 minute remaining. 1 minute remaining.
Then send one to him on Friday. First, it sends it to me to validate it before sending it to the boss. And it looks like they can actually do that in Gemini.
Okay, you got about 30 seconds.
So I did something similar to Ship. It says it's doing my graph API.
Yeah.
It's a quick script. So,
I think you probably do as a DevOps or Jira, but they generally send you email updates when your project has project has changes. So I was like,
yeah, this is just.
All right, about 10 more seconds. That was not my boss. Oh, please, if it was, they'd fire me already. Okay, let's see what you came up with. Okay, how many people actually typed this into the LMMs? Okay, good. Good. What did you do? What did you do?
We have read out.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have created an automation weekly email to my manager between 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Content, highlight the status of my project, challenges and achievements, tone, professional, output format email.
Okay, and what was the response that you got from it?
Generating it now.
Oh, it's all right, we'll come back. Who else? Yes, sir.
Write a script that says name of my boss about my weekly project status. It should first read all my emails from last week and use Gemini to summarize them, then send it at 1 p.m. on Friday. First, send it to me, send me the email to validate it before sending it to my boss. And it gave a couple bullet points of how to do it and how to set things up, and then a Gmail script that looks like it would probably work.
Okay, awesome possum. Very, very good. Say your prompt one more time.
Yes. Write a script that sends an email to my boss about my weekly project status. It should first read all of my emails from last week and use Gemini to summarize them, then send it at 1 p.m. on Friday. First, it should send me the email to validate before sending it to my boss. I think I messed up the grammar there somewhere.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. Everybody heard that prompt. Anybody notice anything in there that could be done to? I mean, it sounds like we've got something that's working with it. Let's refine this a little bit. How else could this be refined? I'm going to give you a clue. Notice how it's reading all of your emails.
In the past week.
Yeah, all of your emails in the past week. If you got an email that was not project related, do you want that as part of the analysis? Right. So how would you refine that?
Maybe specific subject lines.
Yep, that's one way. Okay, yeah, look at specific subject line or specific to project name, right? Or if you have a specific data source, right? All we're doing is we're just adding, another parameter, another thing to be able to get closer to what we want, right? Good example. Very good. Anybody else? Anybody else what'd you try? Boss wants an update on the project. Yes, sir.
Similar to this one, but like specifically saying emails from a particular sender being Jira@company.com.
Mm-hmm.
So that if you were getting a feed of Jira status emails, it would just be summarizing that subsetting of messages, which are going to be specifically updates from Jira.
Okay, great. What else can we do to get, and then what do you expect the end result to be?
Well, I gave it a structure of like 3 main categories and then what to.
Oh,
Mm.
that's the thing I definitely missed is I didn't say what should be in the email, because you were saying like, hey, the boss needs what you're working on, your blockers. I don't think mine would have any blockers in it.
Right. You would just have a general analysis, whereas yours would actually have specifically.
My structure spit out like concepts for like what's going
Mhm. Hi. Right. And again, what we're doing here, there's prompt engineering in my mind. First of all, everybody, again, round of applause for doing the work, for doing the hard work, and doing the confusing work of figuring out what is it that I should be doing and how should this stuff look. Prompt engineering in my mind is as much art as it is process, because you're constantly having to figure out, well, three key things, which we'll get into. It's like, one, what is my objective? Two, what are the parameters? And then three, what does the output look like, or what does success look like? So now we're going to take that kind of to our next level. Let me skip past a whole bunch of this stuff because we're getting right close to the end. We've talked about, you've heard this in some of the other presentations before, about generating code snippets, refactoring code, writing tests, taking care of all of these taking care of a bunch of tasks that you shouldn't have to do manually. That's where I really believe that artificial intelligence really comes in. So writing an email, updating a project report based on a template that you may give it, status reports and the like. Those are where you have advantages to really move efficiently. You've heard this in the previous presentation about what it offers instead of traditional coding, where we talked about vibe coding. And essentially, instead of going through each of these individually, knowing that with your skills as a developer, if you are a novice, it's a way to get started in learning. If you are an expert, it's a way to turbocharge your skills and get things done faster. And that's where we're really trying to use these things. Let's go into a prompt engineering exercise in action. So what I'm going to have you do is do one of three things. Actually, no, I'm going to call an audible. I'm going to move past that. I want you to start thinking about this in terms of the framework. So whatever you're doing in terms of prompt engineering, whether it's something simple like, if you wanted to bake an incredible pie this next weekend, or you want to write, an application in, Google, in Google Workspace, or in Azure, or in some other thing. There's always three key areas. Thinking first of your objective, next thinking of your context or your parameters, and then third, providing an example of success. Now, we've done this as we've kind of figured things out, as I like to do before talking exactly through the exact methodology. But now that we've done that, let's look at how this can look formally. So first of all, what is it that you want to be, what is it that you want to accomplish? Be specific about the intended result, right? I want to send an email to my boss every day so that I don't have to do it manually. I want to generate a function, or I want you to analyze this old code and find the errors because nobody else in the company knows it, and then help me fix that. What are the relevant tools, technologies, limitations, or inputs, right? What languages may I be using in order to do this? If I'm working in code, am I using Google Apps Script? That's what they use in their Office suite. Or am I using JavaScript? Am I using some other thing? If I am just doing something simple like writing an email or a presentation, what kinds of things do I want to be in there? Do I want an overall summary? Do I want specific bullet points? All of those things are parameters that I include with my prompt. And then the third thing, an example of success. So what should success look like? In the case of the email, we talked about making sure that we included in, hey, we had things that were going to be sent at a non-specific time, but within a range, so that the boss knew, hey, I'm already working at this time, right? In the case of our update on a project, knowing that, hey, that result is going to include a project name, it's going to include a summary, it's going to include, what things we're doing well, where we have challenges, and the like. But knowing what that looks like and providing that example for the LMM so that you're able to move forward. Okay, so this is what I'm giving you kind of as your template to really think about this through. Again, think about your objective and goal and what you're trying to do, add your context and add your parameters, and then third, add an example of success. And I think with the, wait a minute, I can't see what time it is because I know we're close. I know we're close.
We can go a little bit over.
Okay, we're 3:52. All right. All right. So with that in mind, let's open up the prompting to not something Dr. Keith is going to tell you to do, but something that you've been wanting to do. I want you to go ahead and create a prompt and you're going to share it with the group, but it's going to be structured in this way, right? You're going to state your objective and what you're trying to create. You're going to have the parameters, an example of success. If you're searching for ideas, here are some ideas. Write me, again, you can do something as simple as provide a email with a project update. What does that look like? If you're saying, hey, if you're doing data analysis, which we didn't have time to get into today, if you're analyzing a data set in an Excel file, what information are you trying to pull from that? And what should that look like? If you are trying to put together a exercise plan, something very, very simple. What is your goal? Is it around losing weight? Is it around building your endurance? What kinds of parameters do you need to add to do that? Again, these are just general suggestions from me, but think about it specifically from your perspective. What kind of things do you want to do? And then how can you define it so that you can get that large language model to be able to help you accomplish it? Let's give you, again, another 2 minutes and start now. Again, work with your teams and your peers.
That really, to me, highlights how much they're just ripping other people off. Oh, yeah. Like, the Stack Overflow, that's kind of open source projects, as long as they're under like an
All right. Got a minute 30. Minute 30.
Sites are, like, all the rest of these recipe sites is because the first 3, 4 start off as they're just SEO.
If you're going to build a web application, what's your goal in building a web application? What's your goal? What are your context parameters? About 1 minute left.
I built a pickleball.
You did?
I love the framework that you put together. Like, I'm applying. I took like a less scientific approach. I think you have a really nice way of explaining in a generic sense, like what I'm seeing, like what I did, like play out like that, but in like the specific sense. Like I look at each of my prompts, and I take that prompt and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the objective part. That's the context and parameters. Like,
yeah.
And then the examples of success sometimes are implicit because of the history, right? That I made that point before you arrived, but it's like sometimes it already knows what I'm trying to do. I've already established what the objective is and what the success looks like. So then, like my favorite prompt is, okay, now this. And all I have to do is provide the context. And
30 seconds.
And it makes it.
Yeah. And that sounds great. And in some cases, I do that. And in some cases, I would ask the question, do you want to take that chance?
I mean,
because
there's a risk,
right?
But it's like what the risk has very little. It's like when computer science first began, the risk of having a bug in your code was you'd have to take all your like little paper sheets and you'd have to run them through the whole system. It might take hours.
Right.
But like with
10 seconds.
With this, like if it forgets, then like you just ask it about and give it and remind it like what the objective was or what the success was.
No, I hear you. That makes great sense. Let's talk about that in a second. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, what'd you do? Okay, before the network error, what did you do? What did you come up with? What did you decide you wanted to do, and how did that look with your prompts? Anybody? Nobody did anything? What did you do? What did you decide to do? What did you come up with?
So we have, in code, write available using expression in Cozy Rock SSIS, include dynamic file name with dates in the file name. File name should have format YYYY_MM_DD. And we got the expression.
Okay, very good. All right. So we got our objectives and goal, we got our context and parameters. What did you provide it for an example of success? Anything?
That it should have the format.
Okay, you provided the format. Excellent. Good, good, good. Somebody else. Very good job. Anybody else? Yes.
I know I talk too much, but I do have one. So I got a recipe because I have a boneless leg of lamb in the fridge. So I asked for how to cook. So first I was saying, hey, I want a recipe to cook it. And then I clarified 4 pounds of all days to cook it. I want to use sous vide followed by this, like giving them parameters.
Mm-hmm.
And then for success was like, I want ingredient seasonings and it wanted to be like 135 medium rare. So saying this is like what the success should be.
Excellent. Yeah, yeah, very good. Very, very good. And one more.
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
I need to populate a table of contributions with 5,000 rows or 500,000 rows for a single fund.
Okay.
And I said in SQL Server. And so then after getting initial thing, I added the parameters about adding columns with values, specific values. I need to search for families based off of family ID and status, and filling in just specific values as well as date should be over the past 10 years with 10,000 within the last 2 years.
I'm going to be very honest. I don't know what most of that stuff means, but it all sounds like.
And it gives lots of contribution stuff, and so I was able to spit out
Mhm.
a SQL script here that I can use as well as parameters at the top, so I can play around with it for the future as well.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. So in all of these, we've got from very general, right, to then very what? We got very specific. What else did we get? We got more clearly what? Anybody know? No? Defined, more clearly defined on exactly what we wanted, and we also provided those examples of success to go along with them. And you notice that this framework can be used literally for anything, right? Anything from anything casual to recipes or guidance for whatever you're searching for to very specific things in terms of programming languages, achieving those specific tasks and the like. I know since we are short on time, I will say there's a lot more stuff to be able to get into with prompt engineering. But again, I think it's as much an art as it is a science. And what you do, as long as you meet your objective, works for you. Giving yourself that framework is going to be is something that's going to be able to help you meet your objectives more times than not. I'll give you just about 30 seconds of this. For me, when I rarely really leverage this, in my off time, I spend a lot of time making videos and trying to do animations for TV shows that I've written kind of as a hobby. I've spent a lot of time in the last month or so trying to turn images that I've made in ChatGPT into full animations. This is all done using prompt engineering and then getting those stills and then editing,
so sweet, aren't they?
editing within all these tools.
People silly. I
Yeah.
like to watch them, feed the animals.
And consume their souls, right?
Excuse me?
I won't make anybody watch this entire thing, but to tell you, right? But to give you an idea of like how far things can take you, right? This is applying that same framework just in a completely different set, for animation. So I know we're about short on time. I don't know. If you want to know the framework about this, the process to do it, create your images in ChatGPT, then use an image editor like Kling or any of the other tools to be able to do the animation, and then you sync it all together in another tool like Adobe Premiere or DaVinci Resolve, and that essentially is that kind of 3-step process. Yes, and I'll walk you through while we're on the break before we get to our final presenter. Any final questions, guys? Cool. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to present on this, and I really appreciate you working through our workshop today. Thank you, guys.
Last break, the last talk, you're almost free.
Yeah.
To the free conference that you all.
But now that we're on break, I am going to play this. But go get pizza. Yes.
Really useful.
Thank you so much, man. I'm glad you dig it. Oh,
Thinking
yes.
out loud, would you be willing to do a session like that to like a company? Like that?
Yeah, sure.
Because one of the things that we're struggling with is
Mhm.
we've given AI tools to various departments in our organisation.
Yeah.
But they're not really using it very well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw it.
And I was like one of the first people to say, hey, there's a whole industry out there doing
Right.
engineering.
I'm paying attention. No, I'm paying attention to you. I'm just muting this so it can run in the background while people are doing their thing. Yes, please continue. No, that's also my insulin
Okay.
dependent thing to make sure that I don't die. But yeah, so you're doing this with folks, and then they're just not using it well.
So yeah, I sit on a steering committee in our